Once, in a quaint little town nestled deep within a dense forest, there stood an ancient mansion, shrouded in mystery and dread. The locals whispered tales of its dark history, claiming it was haunted by the tormented souls of its past inhabitants. One stormy night, a group of adventurous teenagers decided to explore the mansion, fueled by youthful bravado and curiosity. Armed with flashlights and trembling with excitement, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the murky darkness within. As they ventured deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, they felt an eerie presence looming around them. Shadows danced on the walls, and strange whispers echoed through the empty halls, sending shivers down their spines. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, freezing them in terror. They raced towards the source of the sound, only to find themselves trapped in a room with no visible exit. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. Ghostly figures materialized before their eyes, their hollow stares filled with anguish and despair. The air grew thick with the stench of decay as the spirits closed in, their unearthly wails echoing in the confined space. Desperate to escape, the teenagers frantically searched for a way out, but the mansion seemed to twist and warp around them, trapping them in a nightmare they could not wake from. Hours passed, or perhaps it was an eternity, until finally, the first light of dawn filtered through the shattered windows. With trembling hands, they pushed open the doors and stumbled out into the blinding daylight, their minds haunted by the horrors they had witnessed within the mansion's walls. From that day on, the mansion stood silent once more, its secrets buried within its decaying walls, waiting for the next unsuspecting souls to awaken its malevolent spirits and plunge them into the depths of darkness and despair. As the days passed, the memory of their harrowing ordeal began to fade, but the teenagers couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister still lingered within them. Strange occurrences plagued their lives, whispers in the dead of night, inexplicable shadows flickering at the edge of their vision, and nightmares that felt all too real. One by one, they became consumed by a suffocating sense of dread, unable to escape the lingering presence of the mansion's restless spirits. Their once bright eyes grew hollow with fear, and sleep became a fleeting refuge from the relentless torment that plagued their waking hours. No matter how hard they tried to rationalize their experiences, the terror continued to gnaw at their sanity, driving them to the brink of madness. They sought solace in each other's company, but even their bonds began to fray under the weight of their shared trauma. In a desperate bid to break free from the mansion's curse, they returned to its decrepit halls, determined to confront whatever malevolent force held them captive. But as they delved deeper into its depths, they realized that the true horror lay not in the shadows that haunted the mansion, but within the darkness of their own souls. For the mansion was merely a vessel for their deepest fears and darkest secrets, a reflection of the nightmares that lurked within them all. And as they gazed into the abyss, they realized that there was no escape from the twisted labyrinth of their own minds. In the end, they became prisoners of their own making, condemned to wander the halls of the mansion for all eternity, their screams drowned out by the echoing laughter of the spirits that had claimed them as their own. And so, the mansion remained a silent sentinel in the heart of the forest, its walls bearing witness to the tragic fate of those who dared to unlock its secrets, a testament to the true nature of fear, not as something that lurks in the darkness, but as something that lies within us all. The story of the mansion and its cursed inhabitants became a cautionary tale whispered among the townsfolk, a reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond the safety of their quaint village. But despite the warnings, there were always those who dared to test the boundaries of their fear, drawn by the allure of the unknown. As years passed, the mansion faded into legend, its legend growing more embellished with each retelling. Some claimed it was a gateway to the realm of the dead, while others believed it was cursed by a vengeful spirit seeking retribution for past wrongs. Yet, despite the passage of time, the mansion remained unchanged, its weathered facade standing as a silent sentinel against the encroaching forest. But within its walls, the echoes of the past refused to fade, trapped in an eternal cycle of torment and despair. And so, the mansion stood as a testament to the enduring power of fear, a reminder that some secrets are best left buried in the depths of the earth, lest they awaken to claim another unsuspecting soul. But as the sun set behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest, the mansion stirred once more, beckoning to those brave or foolish enough to heed its call. And in the darkness, the whispers of the dead echoed through the night, a chilling reminder that some nightmares never truly end. As night fell over the forest, a group of thrill-seekers gathered at the edge of the woods, drawn by the tantalizing allure of the abandoned mansion and the mysteries it held within. Ignoring the warnings of the locals, they ventured forth, their hearts pounding with excitement and trepidation. Armed with flashlights and fueled by adrenaline, they pushed through the overgrown foliage, each step bringing them closer to their destination. The air grew heavy with anticipation as they finally emerged into the clearing where the mansion loomed, a dark silhouette against the night sky. With trembling hands, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the cold embrace of the mansion's interior. Shadows danced on the walls, casting eerie shapes that seemed to come alive in the flickering light of their flashlights. As they explored the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, they felt the weight of its history pressing down upon them, suffocating them with a sense of foreboding. Strange noises echoed through the empty halls, and a chill wind whispered through the broken windows, sending shivers down their spines. But they pressed on, driven by a reckless curiosity that bordered on madness. They delved deeper into the mansion's depths, each room more decrepit and unsettling than the last. And then, just as they thought they had uncovered all of the mansion's secrets, they stumbled upon a hidden staircase leading down into the darkness below. Without hesitation, they descended into the abyss, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. But as they reached the bottom of the staircase, they realized too late that they had trespassed into a realm beyond their comprehension. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, and the walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy that threatened to consume them whole. And then, from the shadows emerged a presence unlike anything they had ever encountered, a twisted apparition with glowing eyes and a mocking grin, its laughter echoing through the darkness like a death knell. In that moment, they knew they had made a grave mistake. For the mansion was not merely haunted by the ghosts of its past inhabitants, it was a gateway to something far more sinister, something that hungered for their souls. And as the darkness closed in around them, swallowing them whole, they realized with a mounting sense of horror that they would never escape the clutches of the mansion's curse. For once it claimed you, there was no turning back. The group found themselves ensnared in a nightmarish realm where reality twisted and warped at every turn. The mansion's interior seemed to stretch on infinitely, its corridors shifting and rearranging themselves like a maze designed to confound and trap its victims. Desperate to find a way out, they clung to each other as they navigated the labyrinthine halls, their footsteps echoing in the empty darkness. But with each passing moment, their hope dwindled, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread that threatened to consume them whole. As they wandered deeper into the abyss, they encountered horrors beyond their wildest nightmares, grotesque creatures that lurked in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with hunger as they stalked their prey through the darkness. Driven to the brink of madness by the relentless onslaught of terror, the group's bonds began to fray, suspicions and paranoia tearing them apart from within. Every shadow became a potential threat, every sound a harbinger of doom, until they could no longer distinguish between reality and the nightmares that plagued their minds. And then, just when they thought they could bear no more, they stumbled upon a chamber hidden deep within the bowels of the mansion, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. Deep in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, nestled among towering pines and whispering winds, there lay a forgotten town with a dark secret. At its center stood a mansion, its crumbling facade a testament to a bygone era of wealth and opulence. But beneath its grandeur lurked a darkness that had plagued the town for generations. Legend had it that the mansion was cursed, its halls haunted by the vengeful spirits of those who had perished within its walls. Some said it was the ghost of a scorned lover, others whispered of a family driven mad by greed and betrayal. But whatever the truth may be, none dared to venture too close after nightfall, for fear of awakening the malevolent force that dwelled within. Yet, despite the warnings, a group of intrepid explorers dared to defy the town's superstitions, drawn by the allure of the mansion's secrets. Among them were Sarah, a spirited young woman with a thirst for adventure, and her friends, Alex, Emily, and Jake, each seeking their own answers to the mysteries that lay hidden within the mansion's depths. Armed with flashlights and a sense of bravado, they set out into the forest under the cover of night, their hearts pounding with excitement and trepidation. As they approached the mansion, they felt a chill run down their spines, as if the very air around them was alive with a malevolent energy. Ignoring the warning signs, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the darkness within. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the floorboards groaned beneath their weight as they ventured further into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. At first, all seemed quiet, the only sound the echo of their footsteps against the cold stone floors. But as they delved deeper into the mansion's depths, they began to sense a presence watching them from the shadows, its gaze filled with a hunger that sent shivers down their spines. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, echoing through the empty halls and freezing them in their tracks. With hearts racing, they raced towards the source of the sound, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope in a sea of despair. But what they found sent waves of terror crashing over them like a tidal wave. In the dim light, they saw the ghostly figures of those who had perished within the mansion's walls, their eyes filled with a haunting sadness that chilled them to the bone. Desperate to escape the nightmare unfolding around them, they turned to flee, only to find their path blocked by a wall of darkness that seemed to stretch on for eternity. Trapped and alone, they huddled together, their minds reeling with fear and confusion as the spirits closed in around them. But just as all hope seemed lost, Sarah remembered the stories her grandmother had told her as a child, stories of a hidden passage that lay hidden beneath the mansion, a passage that led to safety for those brave enough to seek it out. With a newfound determination, they set out to find the passage, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. Inch by inch, they searched every corner of the mansion, until at last, they stumbled upon a hidden staircase concealed behind a crumbling wall. With trembling hands, they descended into the darkness below, their hearts racing as they raced against time to escape the mansion's curse. And as they emerged into the light of dawn, they felt a sense of relief wash over them like a warm embrace, knowing that they had cheated death once more. But as they looked back at the mansion looming in the distance, they knew that their ordeal was far from over. For the darkness that had haunted the town for generations still lingered, waiting for its next victim to fall prey to its insatiable hunger. And as they disappeared into the forest, the mansion stood silent and watchful, its secrets buried deep within its decaying walls, waiting for the next unsuspecting souls to awaken its malevolent spirits and plunge them into the depths of darkness and despair. Months passed since the harrowing night at the mansion, but the memories of their ordeal continued to haunt Sarah, Alex, Emily, and Jake like lingering specters. Despite their best efforts to move on with their lives, the darkness that had enveloped them that fateful night seemed to cling to their very souls, casting a shadow over their every waking moment. Each of them struggled to come to terms with what they had experienced, grappling with nightmares that refused to fade and a sense of unease that seemed to follow them wherever they went. They tried to find solace in each other's company, seeking refuge in the familiarity of their friendship, but the bond that once held them together now felt fragile and strained, frayed by the weight of their shared trauma. Sarah, haunted by visions of the ghostly figures she had encountered in the mansion, found herself consumed by a sense of guilt and responsibility. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had awoken something dark and malevolent that had been better left undisturbed, and the thought gnawed at her conscience like a festering wound. Alex, once the fearless leader of their group, now found himself plagued by doubt and uncertainty. The memories of that night tormented him, taunting him with questions he couldn't answer and doubts he couldn't silence. He feared that they had only scratched the surface of the mansion's secrets, and that the true horror still lay waiting to be unleashed. Emily, ever the optimist, tried to bury her fears beneath a facade of false bravado, but the nightmares that haunted her dreams told a different story. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the spirits of the mansion were still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And Jake, the skeptic of the group, found himself grappling with a crisis of faith unlike anything he had ever experienced. The events of that night had shaken his belief in the rational world, forcing him to confront the possibility that there were forces beyond his understanding, forces that defied explanation and reason. Together, they struggled to make sense of their shared trauma, searching for answers in the fragments of memories that haunted their minds. But the more they tried to piece together the puzzle of that fateful night, the more elusive the truth seemed to become, slipping through their fingers like smoke in the wind. And so, they found themselves drawn back to the mansion, unable to resist the pull of its dark allure. With each passing day, the whispers grew louder, the shadows darker, until at last, they could resist no longer. Armed with newfound resolve, they returned to the mansion, determined to confront whatever darkness lay within its walls and put an end to the nightmare that had consumed their lives. But little did they know that their journey was far from over, and that the true horror was yet to come. As they approached the mansion once again, a sense of foreboding washed over them, like a cold hand gripping their hearts. The air was heavy with anticipation, crackling with a tension that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the ancient building. Pushing open the creaking doors, they stepped into the darkness within, their flashlights cutting through the gloom like feeble beacons in a sea of shadows. The familiar chill of the mansion's interior sent shivers down their spines, but this time, they were determined not to let fear dictate their actions. With grim determination, they began to explore the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the darkness that lurked within. The echoes of their footsteps reverberated through the empty halls, a hollow reminder of the emptiness that surrounded them. But as they ventured deeper into the mansion's depths, they began to sense a change in the air, a palpable shift in the atmosphere that set their nerves on edge. Strange whispers echoed through the darkness, and the shadows seemed to dance with a life of their own, twisting and writhing like malevolent spirits seeking to ensnare them. Ignoring the creeping sense of dread that threatened to overwhelm them, they pressed on, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that they were united in their quest to uncover the truth. Each room they explored held its own secrets, its own horrors, but they refused to be deterred, driven ever forward by a relentless determination to confront the darkness head-on. And then, just as they thought they had reached the limits of their endurance, they stumbled upon a chamber unlike any they had seen before. The walls were adorned with strange symbols and arcane sigils, their meaning lost to the sands of time, and a sense of ancient power pulsed in the air like a heartbeat. As they cautiously approached the center of the chamber, they saw a pedestal bathed in an eerie light, upon which rested a curious artifact, an ornate amulet wrought of dark metal and encrusted with strange gemstones that glimmered with an otherworldly light. Instinctively, they reached out to touch the amulet, drawn by an inexplicable force that seemed to beckon them closer. But as their fingers brushed against its surface, a blinding flash of light engulfed them, tearing them from the fabric of reality and casting them into a realm beyond their wildest nightmares. In that moment, they realized with a sinking dread that they had fallen victim to the mansion's curse, ensnared in its web of darkness with no hope of escape. And as they were consumed by the abyss, their screams echoed through the empty halls, a chilling reminder of the true horror that lurked within the heart of the mansion. In the realm beyond the mansion, Sarah, Alex, Emily, and Jake found themselves adrift in a nightmarish landscape that defied comprehension. The air was thick with a suffocating darkness, broken only by flickering shadows that danced across the void like phantoms in the night. Desperate to find a way out, they clung to each other as they navigated the surreal landscape, their minds reeling with confusion and fear. Time seemed to lose all meaning as they wandered through the endless expanse of the abyss, each step taking them further from the world they once knew. But just as hope began to wane, they stumbled upon a glimmer of light in the distance, a faint beacon of hope amidst the darkness that surrounded them. With renewed determination, they set out towards the light, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they raced against time to escape the clutches of the mansion's curse. As they drew closer to the source of the light, they began to sense a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle change that filled them with a sense of unease. Shadows twisted and writhed around them, whispering dark secrets that sent shivers down their spines, and the air grew thick with a palpable sense of malevolence. Undeterred by the mounting danger, they pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the emptiness like a drumbeat of defiance. But just as they reached the edge of the light, they were confronted by a sinister figure cloaked in shadows, its eyes gleaming with a cold, otherworldly light. With a voice like ice, the figure spoke, its words echoing through the darkness like a death knell. "You have trespassed into the realm of the dead," it intoned, its voice dripping with malice. "And now, you shall pay the price for your folly." With a wave of its hand, the figure unleashed a wave of darkness that engulfed them, tearing at their very souls with a ferocity that threatened to consume them whole. Sarah, Alex, Emily, and Jake cried out in agony as they struggled against the relentless onslaught, their minds and bodies pushed to the brink of oblivion. But just when all seemed lost, a glimmer of hope pierced the darkness, a memory, faint yet undeniable, of the bond that had once united them in their quest for truth. Drawing strength from their shared resolve, they reached out to each other, their hands clasped tight in a gesture of solidarity and defiance. In that moment, the darkness began to recede, driven back by the power of their unity and determination. With a final burst of strength, they broke free from its grasp, emerging into the light once more with a renewed sense of purpose and resolve. But as they looked around at the surreal landscape that surrounded them, they knew that their journey was far from over. For the mansion's curse still loomed over them like a shadow, its tendrils reaching out from the depths of the abyss to ensnare them once more. And so, hand in hand, they set out into the unknown, their hearts filled with a flicker of hope amidst the darkness that surrounded them. For they knew that as long as they remained together, they would never truly be alone, and that together, they would find a way to break the curse of the mansion once and for all. As they ventured deeper into the strange realm, they encountered bizarre landscapes that seemed to shift and morph with each passing moment. Mountains of twisted stone rose up from the ground like jagged teeth, while rivers of molten lava snaked their way through valleys of ash and bone. Despite the surreal horrors that surrounded them, Sarah, Alex, Emily, and Jake pressed on, their determination unshaken by the nightmarish landscape that unfolded before them. Guided by an instinctive sense of direction, they followed the faint glimmer of light that beckoned them forward, their hearts filled with a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. As they journeyed deeper into the realm, they encountered strange and wondrous creatures that seemed to defy logic and reason. Ethereal beings of light danced among the shadows, their movements graceful and hypnotic, while grotesque monsters lurked in the darkness, their eyes gleaming with a hunger that sent shivers down their spines. But despite the dangers that lurked around every corner, they found unexpected allies in the most unlikely of places. Spirits of the dead, bound by the same curse that had ensnared them, offered guidance and assistance, leading them through the treacherous terrain with a knowledge born of centuries of suffering. With the help of their newfound allies, they navigated through perilous obstacles and overcome daunting challenges, inching ever closer to the source of the light that beckoned them forward. Along the way, they uncovered fragments of the mansion's dark history, piecing together the puzzle of its curse one clue at a time. But as they drew closer to their destination, they realized that the true test lay not in the dangers that lurked within the realm, but within themselves. Each of them was forced to confront their deepest fears and darkest secrets, facing their inner demons head-on in a battle for their very souls. In the end, it was their bond as friends that proved to be their greatest strength, their unwavering loyalty and trust in each other carrying them through even the darkest of moments. And as they stood on the brink of victory, united in purpose and resolve, they knew that they would emerge from the realm stronger and more resilient than ever before. With a final surge of determination, they pressed forward, their hearts filled with hope as they prepared to confront the darkness that had plagued them for so long. For they knew that no matter what awaited them on the other side, they would face it together, as friends bound by a bond that transcended time and space. And so, hand in hand, they stepped into the blinding light that awaited them, ready to confront their destiny and break the curse of the mansion once and for all. And though the journey ahead would be fraught with peril and uncertainty, they faced it with courage and conviction, knowing that as long as they remained together, they would emerge victorious in the end. In the heart of the dense forest stood an imposing mansion, its weathered facade a testament to a forgotten era. Locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning of the malevolent spirits that roamed its halls. Tales of mysterious disappearances and unexplained phenomena shrouded the mansion in an aura of dread, dissuading all but the bravest from venturing near. Among those brave few were a group of friends: Ethan, the bold leader; Mia, the fearless adventurer; Liam, the skeptical intellect; and Ava, the empathetic healer. Fueled by curiosity and youthful naivety, they dared each other to spend a night within the mansion's walls, eager to uncover its secrets. As dusk fell and the forest echoed with the calls of nocturnal creatures, the friends gathered outside the mansion, their nerves tingling with anticipation. With flashlights in hand and hearts pounding in their chests, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the darkness within. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the floorboards groaned beneath their weight as they ventured deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. Shadows danced on the walls, and strange whispers echoed through the empty halls, sending shivers down their spines. But the friends pressed on, their footsteps echoing in the silence as they explored the mansion's long-forgotten rooms. Each chamber held its own secrets, its own horrors, but they remained undeterred, driven by a mixture of excitement and trepidation. As the night wore on, strange occurrences began to unsettle the friends. Objects moved of their own accord, and eerie whispers seemed to follow them wherever they went. Liam, ever the skeptic, attempted to rationalize the phenomena, attributing them to drafts and creaky floorboards. But even he couldn't deny the sense of unease that settled over them like a suffocating blanket. Their nerves frayed and their resolve waning, the friends decided to retreat to a central room and regroup. But as they huddled together, seeking solace in each other's company, a sudden chill swept through the room, freezing them in place. With a deafening roar, the mansion seemed to come alive around them, its walls twisting and warping like a living, breathing entity. Desperate to escape, the friends raced towards the exit, only to find themselves trapped in a maze of shifting corridors that led them in circles. As panic set in and their sanity began to fray, they stumbled upon a hidden staircase leading down into the bowels of the mansion. With no other option but to descend into the unknown, they braced themselves for whatever horrors awaited them below. What they found was beyond their worst nightmares. The lower levels of the mansion were a labyrinth of torture chambers and unholy altars, where unspeakable rituals had been performed in the name of dark forces beyond comprehension. But worst of all were the spirits that haunted the depths of the mansion, tormented souls trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. Their hollow eyes bore into the friends' souls, filling them with a sense of overwhelming despair and hopelessness. With nowhere left to run and their spirits broken, the friends prepared to meet their fate at the hands of the mansion's malevolent forces. But just as all seemed lost, Ava, the empathetic healer, reached out to the spirits with a voice filled with compassion and understanding. In a moment of clarity, the spirits ceased their torment, their anguished wails fading into silence as they were released from their eternal suffering. And as the darkness lifted and the mansion crumbled around them, the friends emerged into the light once more, forever changed by their brush with the supernatural. From that day on, the mansion stood silent and empty, its dark secrets buried beneath the rubble of its crumbling walls. But the friends knew that the horrors they had witnessed would stay with them forever, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows and the power of friendship to overcome even the darkest of nightmares. Years passed, and the friends tried to move on from the horrors of that fateful night. They each pursued their own paths, but the memory of the mansion and the bond forged in its darkness remained etched in their minds like a scar. Ethan, haunted by guilt over leading his friends into danger, dedicated his life to protecting others. He became a firefighter, rushing headfirst into burning buildings to save those trapped within, hoping to atone for the mistakes of his past. Mia, fueled by a thirst for adventure and a desire to understand the mysteries of the supernatural, embarked on a journey around the world. She traveled to remote corners of the globe, seeking out ancient legends and forgotten lore, determined to uncover the truth behind the forces that had threatened to consume them. Liam, ever the rational thinker, delved into the world of science and academia. He became a renowned researcher, studying the phenomena of the paranormal with a skeptical eye, searching for logical explanations to the unexplained. And Ava, gifted with a deep empathy and connection to the spiritual world, dedicated herself to helping others overcome their own traumas. She became a therapist, specializing in trauma recovery and spiritual healing, using her gift to guide others on their journey to find peace and closure. Despite their diverging paths, the friends remained connected by the bond forged in the darkness of the mansion. They stayed in touch, supporting each other through life's trials and tribulations, finding solace in the knowledge that they were not alone in their struggles. But the mansion's curse was far from forgotten. As the years passed, whispers of its dark legacy persisted, drawing in new victims with promises of untold riches and forbidden knowledge. And though the friends had escaped its grasp, they knew that others would not be so lucky. Determined to prevent others from falling prey to the mansion's curse, they reunited once more, pooling their knowledge and resources to uncover the truth behind its dark secrets. Together, they embarked on a journey to confront the darkness that had haunted them for so long, knowing that their bond and determination would see them through whatever challenges lay ahead. And as they stood before the mansion once more, their hearts filled with resolve and courage, they knew that this time, they would not be alone in their fight. For they had each other, and together, they would face the darkness head-on, ensuring that the mansion's curse would never again claim another victim. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, the friends stepped forward, their footsteps echoing in the silence as they approached the mansion's imposing facade. The air was heavy with anticipation, crackling with an energy that seemed to hum with the weight of centuries-old secrets. As they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the darkness within, memories of their previous encounter flooded back, each step a reminder of the terror they had faced and the bonds that had been forged in the crucible of fear. But this time, they were prepared. Armed with knowledge gleaned from years of research and personal experience, they navigated the mansion's labyrinthine corridors with a sense of purpose and resolve, determined to uncover the truth behind its dark history. Their journey took them deeper into the heart of the mansion than ever before, each room revealing new horrors and hidden secrets. They encountered apparitions of long-dead inhabitants, their anguished cries echoing through the empty halls, and unearthed ancient artifacts imbued with unspeakable power. But as they delved deeper into the mansion's depths, they began to sense a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle change that set their nerves on edge. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and whispers filled the air, taunting them with half-remembered nightmares and forgotten truths. Undeterred by the mounting danger, the friends pressed on, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that they were not alone in their quest. With each step, they drew closer to the heart of the darkness that had plagued them for so long, their determination unshaken by the horrors that surrounded them. And then, just as they thought they had uncovered all of the mansion's secrets, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within its bowels. The room was filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air like a living thing. As they pored over the artifacts, deciphering the cryptic symbols and deciphering the ancient texts, they began to piece together the true nature of the mansion's curse. They learned of a dark ritual performed centuries ago, a pact made with unspeakable forces in exchange for power and immortality. But as they delved deeper into the mystery, they uncovered a shocking truth: the mansion's curse was not just confined to its walls, but had spread like a malignant cancer, infecting the very fabric of reality itself. With time running out and the darkness closing in around them, the friends knew that they had to act fast if they were to prevent the curse from consuming everything they held dear. With a sense of urgency, they gathered their strength and prepared to confront the source of the darkness head-on, knowing that the fate of the world hung in the balance. And as they stood before the gateway to the realm of the dark forces that lurked within, they knew that their journey was far from over. But with their bond as friends unbreakable and their resolve unwavering, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them on the other side. As they stepped through the gateway, the world around them twisted and warped, reality bending to accommodate the dark forces that lurked within. The air grew thick with an oppressive darkness, and the ground trembled beneath their feet as they ventured deeper into the realm of the unknown. Strange creatures lurked in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with a malevolent light as they stalked the intruders through the darkness. Ethan, Mia, Liam, and Ava tightened their grip on each other's hands, drawing strength from the bond that had carried them through countless trials and tribulations. With each step, they felt the weight of the darkness pressing down upon them, threatening to crush their spirits and extinguish the flicker of hope that burned within their hearts. But they refused to falter, their determination unwavering as they pressed on towards the heart of the darkness. As they journeyed deeper into the realm, they encountered obstacles unlike anything they had ever faced before. They battled against twisted creatures spawned from the darkest depths of the abyss, their skills and courage put to the test as they fought for their very survival. But with each victory, they uncovered new clues and revelations about the nature of the curse that had plagued the mansion and threatened to consume the world. They learned of the ancient beings that lurked in the shadows, hungry for power and willing to unleash unimaginable horrors upon the world to achieve their goals. Armed with this newfound knowledge, the friends pushed forward, their hearts filled with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. They knew that they were running out of time, that the fate of the world hung in the balance, and that they were the only ones who could stop the darkness from spreading. And so, they pressed on, their resolve unshakable as they faced one final trial, a confrontation with the dark forces that had ensnared them in their web of deceit and manipulation. With a fierce battle cry, they charged into the heart of the darkness, ready to face whatever awaited them on the other side. But as they stood before the ancient being that lay at the heart of the darkness, they realized that victory would not come easily. The creature loomed over them like a twisted monstrosity, its eyes burning with an unholy fire as it prepared to unleash its fury upon the world. With a defiant roar, Ethan, Mia, Liam, and Ava launched themselves into battle, their weapons clashing against the creature's dark powers as they fought with all their might to banish it from the realm once and for all. And as the final blow fell and the creature's dark form dissolved into nothingness, the friends knew that they had emerged victorious. The darkness that had plagued the mansion and threatened to consume the world was finally banished, its hold broken by the strength of their friendship and the power of their resolve. As they emerged from the realm, battered but victorious, they knew that their journey was far from over. But with their bond as friends stronger than ever before, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that as long as they stood together, they could overcome anything that stood in their way. The friends emerged from the realm of darkness into the blinding light of day, blinking against the sudden brightness as they adjusted to the world outside. The air felt lighter, the oppressive weight of the darkness lifted from their shoulders as they basked in the warmth of the sun's rays. But even as they reveled in their victory, they knew that their journey was far from over. The mansion still stood, its decrepit facade a stark reminder of the horrors they had faced within its walls, and the world outside was still reeling from the aftermath of the darkness that had threatened to consume it. Determined to set things right, Ethan, Mia, Liam, and Ava embarked on a new quest to cleanse the mansion of its curse once and for all and to restore peace to the world that had been torn apart by the forces of darkness. With the knowledge they had gained from their harrowing journey and the bonds of friendship that had carried them through even the darkest of times, they set to work unraveling the mysteries of the mansion's curse. They delved into ancient texts and consulted with experts in the arcane arts, piecing together a plan to rid the mansion of its malevolent influence. But as they worked tirelessly to unravel the curse, they encountered obstacles at every turn. Dark forces still lurked in the shadows, determined to thwart their efforts and maintain their hold over the mansion and the world beyond. Undeterred by the challenges they faced, the friends pressed on, their determination unwavering as they fought against the darkness with every ounce of strength they possessed. With each victory, they drew closer to their goal, their resolve bolstered by the knowledge that they were not alone in their fight. And then, finally, after months of tireless effort and countless sacrifices, they succeeded. With a final incantation and a burst of light, the curse that had plagued the mansion for centuries was broken, its dark influence banished forever from the world. As they stood outside the mansion, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, Ethan, Mia, Liam, and Ava shared a moment of triumph, their hearts filled with a sense of peace and satisfaction. The darkness that had once threatened to consume them had been vanquished, and in its place stood a beacon of hope and renewal. But even as they celebrated their victory, they knew that their journey was not yet complete. There were still other dark forces lurking in the shadows, other battles waiting to be fought. But with their bond as friends unbreakable and their resolve stronger than ever before, they knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, united in purpose and ready to confront the darkness wherever it may arise. In the heart of the dense, ancient forest, nestled among towering trees and whispering winds, stood a mansion forgotten by time. Its dilapidated facade loomed ominously against the backdrop of twisted branches and tangled undergrowth, casting a shadow that seemed to stretch on forever. Few dared to venture near, for the mansion was said to be cursed, its halls haunted by the restless spirits of those who had perished within its walls. Among the superstitious locals, tales of the mansion's dark history were whispered in hushed tones. They spoke of a wealthy family who had once called the mansion home, their greed and ambition leading them down a path of darkness from which there was no return. It was said that they had made a pact with unspeakable forces in exchange for power and immortality, sealing their fate and that of the mansion for all eternity. But despite the warnings and legends that surrounded it, a group of intrepid explorers dared to defy the town's superstitions and venture into the mansion's depths. Among them were Sarah, a spirited young woman with a thirst for adventure, James, her steadfast and courageous partner, Maya, a brilliant scholar with a fascination for the occult, and Marcus, a seasoned explorer with a knack for uncovering hidden secrets. Armed with curiosity and determination, they set out into the forest under the cover of night, their hearts pounding with excitement and trepidation. As they approached the mansion, they felt a chill run down their spines, as if the very air around them was alive with a malevolent energy. Ignoring the warning signs, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the darkness within. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the floorboards groaned beneath their weight as they ventured further into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. At first, all seemed quiet, the only sound the echo of their footsteps against the cold stone floors. But as they delved deeper into the mansion's depths, they began to sense a presence watching them from the shadows, its gaze filled with a hunger that sent shivers down their spines. Desperate to find a way out, they clung to each other as they navigated the maze-like halls, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope in a sea of despair. But with each passing moment, their hope dwindled, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread that threatened to consume them whole. As they wandered deeper into the abyss, they encountered horrors beyond their wildest nightmares, grotesque creatures that lurked in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with hunger as they stalked their prey through the darkness. Driven to the brink of madness by the relentless onslaught of terror, the group's bonds began to fray, suspicions and paranoia tearing them apart from within. Every shadow became a potential threat, every sound a harbinger of doom, until they could no longer distinguish between reality and the nightmares that plagued their minds. And then, just when they thought they could bear no more, they stumbled upon a chamber hidden deep within the bowels of the mansion, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. Months passed since their harrowing escape from the mansion's curse, but the memories of that night continued to haunt Sarah, James, Maya, and Marcus like specters in the night. Despite their best efforts to move on with their lives, the darkness that had enveloped them refused to release its grip, casting a shadow over their every waking moment. Each of them struggled to come to terms with what they had experienced, grappling with nightmares that seemed to grow more vivid with each passing day. The bond that had once held them together now felt strained, frayed by the weight of their shared trauma and the secrets that still lay buried beneath the ruins of the mansion. Sarah, plagued by guilt over leading her friends into danger, found herself consumed by a sense of responsibility for their suffering. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had unleashed something dark and malevolent that had been better left undisturbed, and the thought gnawed at her conscience like a festering wound. James, once the stalwart leader of their group, now found himself plagued by doubt and uncertainty. The memories of that night tormented him, taunting him with questions he couldn't answer and doubts he couldn't silence. He feared that they had only scratched the surface of the mansion's secrets, and that the true horror still lay waiting to be unleashed. Maya, ever the rational thinker, tried to bury her fears beneath a facade of skepticism, but the nightmares that haunted her dreams told a different story. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the spirits of the mansion were still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And Marcus, the stoic explorer, found himself grappling with a crisis of faith unlike anything he had ever experienced. The events of that night had shaken his belief in the natural order of the world, forcing him to confront the possibility that there were forces beyond his understanding, forces that defied explanation and reason. Together, they struggled to make sense of their shared trauma, searching for answers in the fragments of memories that haunted their minds. But the more they tried to piece together the puzzle of that fateful night, the more elusive the truth seemed to become, slipping through their fingers like sand in the wind. And then, just when they thought they had reached the limits of their endurance, they received a mysterious message, a cryptic invitation to return to the mansion, promising answers to the questions that had plagued them for so long. With trepidation and a sense of foreboding, they gathered once more at the edge of the forest, their hearts heavy with uncertainty as they prepared to confront the darkness that awaited them within the mansion's walls. For they knew that their journey was far from over, and that the true horror was yet to come. As they stood at the threshold of the forest, the dense canopy overhead casting shadows that seemed to reach out and ensnare them, Sarah, James, Maya, and Marcus exchanged uneasy glances. The invitation to return to the mansion had filled them with a mixture of dread and curiosity, igniting a flicker of hope that perhaps this time, they would finally uncover the truth behind its dark secrets. With a shared sense of determination, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped once more into the darkness within. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and the floorboards groaned beneath their weight as they ventured deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. But this time, there was something different in the air, a sense of anticipation, as if the mansion itself was waiting for their return. Shadows danced on the walls, and strange whispers echoed through the empty halls, guiding them further into the depths of the darkness. With each step, their memories of that fateful night came flooding back, each corner of the mansion holding echoes of the terror they had faced. But this time, they refused to be cowed by fear. Armed with the knowledge they had gained since their last visit, they pressed on with a newfound sense of purpose, determined to confront the darkness head-on. Their journey led them deeper into the mansion's depths than ever before, each room revealing new horrors and hidden secrets. They encountered apparitions of long-dead inhabitants, their anguished cries echoing through the empty halls, and unearthed ancient artifacts imbued with unspeakable power. But as they delved deeper into the mansion's dark history, they began to sense a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle change that set their nerves on edge. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and whispers filled the air, taunting them with half-remembered nightmares and forgotten truths. Undeterred by the mounting danger, the friends pressed on, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that they were united in their quest for answers. With each passing moment, they drew closer to the heart of the darkness that had plagued them for so long, their determination unshaken by the horrors that surrounded them. And then, just as they thought they had uncovered all of the mansion's secrets, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within its bowels, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. Weeks passed since their narrow escape from the crumbling mansion, but the events of that harrowing night continued to haunt Sarah, James, Maya, and Marcus like persistent ghosts. Each of them struggled to come to terms with the darkness they had faced, grappling with the memories that seemed to claw at their minds with relentless intensity. Sarah, burdened by guilt over leading her friends into danger, found herself consumed by a sense of responsibility for their suffering. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had awakened something dark and malevolent, something that had been better left undisturbed, and the thought weighed heavily on her conscience. James, once the fearless leader of their group, now found himself plagued by doubt and uncertainty. The memories of that night tormented him, taunting him with questions he couldn't answer and doubts he couldn't silence. He feared that they had only scratched the surface of the mansion's secrets, and that the true horror still lay waiting to be unleashed. Maya, the ever-curious scholar, tried to bury her fears beneath a veneer of skepticism, but the nightmares that haunted her dreams told a different story. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the spirits of the mansion were still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And Marcus, the stoic explorer, found himself grappling with a crisis of faith unlike anything he had ever experienced. The events of that night had shaken his belief in the natural order of the world, forcing him to confront the possibility that there were forces beyond his understanding, forces that defied explanation and reason. Together, they struggled to make sense of their shared trauma, searching for answers in the fragments of memories that haunted their minds. But the more they tried to piece together the puzzle of that fateful night, the more elusive the truth seemed to become, slipping through their fingers like sand in the wind. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of their shared burden threatened to tear them apart. Suspicion and paranoia crept into their interactions, fracturing the bond that had once held them together. They found themselves drifting apart, each retreating into their own private torment, unable to bridge the growing divide between them. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, they received a mysterious message, a cryptic invitation to return to the mansion once more, promising answers to the questions that had plagued them for so long. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, they gathered once more at the edge of the forest, their hearts heavy with uncertainty as they prepared to confront the darkness that awaited them within the mansion's walls. For they knew that their journey was far from over, and that the true horror was yet to come. With hesitant steps, the group ventured back into the forest, their path illuminated by the dim glow of their flashlights. The air seemed to thicken around them as they approached the mansion, each footfall echoing ominously against the forest floor. Upon reaching the mansion's imposing facade, they were greeted by the same eerie silence that had enveloped their previous visits. The creaking of the doors as they swung open echoed through the empty halls, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within. As they stepped over the threshold, a sense of déjà vu washed over them, the memories of their previous encounters flooding back with startling clarity. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and the once grand halls were shrouded in darkness, casting long, sinister shadows on the walls. But this time, there was something different in the air, a palpable sense of anticipation, as if the mansion itself was aware of their presence and waiting for their return. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts pounding in their chests as they braced themselves for what lay ahead. Their footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as they ventured deeper into the mansion's depths, the darkness closing in around them like a suffocating blanket. Each room held its own horrors, its own secrets, but they pressed on with a determination born of desperation, their minds consumed by the need for answers. But as they delved deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, they began to sense a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle change that set their nerves on edge. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and whispers filled the air, taunting them with half-remembered nightmares and forgotten truths. Undeterred by the mounting danger, the friends pressed on, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that they were united in their quest for answers. With each passing moment, they drew closer to the heart of the darkness that had plagued them for so long, their determination unshaken by the horrors that surrounded them. And then, just as they thought they had uncovered all of the mansion's secrets, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within its bowels, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. In the depths of a dense and ancient forest, where the trees whispered secrets and the shadows danced with unseen spirits, there stood a mansion unlike any other. Its weathered stone walls bore the scars of centuries, and its once grand halls echoed with the whispers of long-forgotten memories. To the locals, it was known simply as the Manor of Shadows, a place shrouded in mystery and whispered tales of horror. Among the townsfolk, stories of the mansion's dark history were passed down from generation to generation like precious heirlooms. They spoke of a family who had once lived within its walls, a family whose wealth and power had come at a terrible price. It was said that they had made a pact with the forces of darkness, trading their souls for immortality and eternal power, and sealing their fate and that of the mansion for all time. But despite the warnings and superstitions that surrounded it, a group of intrepid adventurers dared to defy the town's fears and venture into the mansion's depths. Among them were Catherine, a bold and fearless leader, Thomas, her loyal and steadfast companion, Amelia, a brilliant scholar with a fascination for the occult, and William, a seasoned explorer with a thirst for adventure. Armed with courage and curiosity, they set out into the forest under the cover of night, their hearts pounding with excitement and trepidation. As they approached the mansion, a sense of unease settled over them like a shroud, as if the very air around them was alive with a malevolent energy. Ignoring the warnings of the townsfolk, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the darkness within. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the floorboards groaned beneath their weight as they ventured further into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. At first, all seemed quiet, the only sound the echo of their footsteps against the cold stone floors. But as they delved deeper into the mansion's depths, they began to sense a presence watching them from the shadows, its gaze filled with a hunger that sent shivers down their spines. Desperate to find a way out, they clung to each other as they navigated the maze-like halls, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope in a sea of despair. But with each passing moment, their hope dwindled, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread that threatened to consume them whole. As they wandered deeper into the abyss, they encountered horrors beyond their wildest nightmares, grotesque creatures that lurked in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with hunger as they stalked their prey through the darkness. Driven to the brink of madness by the relentless onslaught of terror, the group's bonds began to fray, suspicions and paranoia tearing them apart from within. Every shadow became a potential threat, every sound a harbinger of doom, until they could no longer distinguish between reality and the nightmares that plagued their minds. And then, just when it seemed that all hope was lost, they stumbled upon a chamber hidden deep within the bowels of the mansion, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. Months had passed since their narrow escape from the crumbling mansion, but the events of that fateful night continued to haunt Catherine, Thomas, Amelia, and William like lingering echoes in the darkness. Each of them struggled to come to terms with the horrors they had faced, grappling with memories that seemed to twist and warp with each passing day. Catherine, once the bold and fearless leader of their group, now found herself plagued by doubt and uncertainty. The memories of that night tormented her, taunting her with questions she couldn't answer and doubts she couldn't shake. She feared that they had only scratched the surface of the mansion's secrets, and that the true horror still lay waiting to be unleashed. Thomas, her loyal and steadfast companion, tried to bury his fears beneath a mask of stoicism, but the nightmares that haunted his dreams told a different story. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the spirits of the mansion were still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Amelia, the brilliant scholar, found herself grappling with a crisis of faith unlike anything she had ever experienced. The events of that night had shaken her belief in the natural order of the world, forcing her to confront the possibility that there were forces beyond her understanding, forces that defied explanation and reason. And William, the seasoned explorer, struggled to come to terms with the loss of his comrades and the weight of the guilt that threatened to consume him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had failed them, that he had led them into danger with false promises of adventure and discovery. Together, they struggled to make sense of their shared trauma, searching for answers in the fragments of memories that haunted their minds. But the more they tried to piece together the puzzle of that fateful night, the more elusive the truth seemed to become, slipping through their fingers like smoke in the wind. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of their shared burden threatened to tear them apart. Suspicion and paranoia crept into their interactions, fracturing the bond that had once held them together. They found themselves drifting apart, each retreating into their own private torment, unable to bridge the growing divide between them. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, they received a mysterious message, a cryptic invitation to return to the mansion once more, promising answers to the questions that had plagued them for so long. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, they gathered once more at the edge of the forest, their hearts heavy with uncertainty as they prepared to confront the darkness that awaited them within the mansion's walls. For they knew that their journey was far from over, and that the true horror was yet to come. With a sense of foreboding, Catherine, Thomas, Amelia, and William stepped once more into the shadowy depths of the forest, their minds swirling with a mix of fear and determination. The path ahead seemed darker than before, the trees looming like silent sentinels as they made their way towards the mansion. As they approached the mansion's imposing facade, the air grew heavy with anticipation, each step echoing loudly in the stillness of the night. The creaking of the doors as they swung open seemed to reverberate through the empty halls, a chilling reminder of the horrors that awaited them within. Once inside, the darkness enveloped them like a suffocating cloak, the air thick with the scent of decay and despair. Memories of their previous visit flooded back with startling clarity, each corner of the mansion holding echoes of the terror they had faced. But this time, there was something different in the air, a palpable sense of malevolence that seemed to seep from the very walls themselves. Shadows danced on the walls, and strange whispers echoed through the empty halls, guiding them further into the depths of the darkness. Undeterred by the mounting danger, the friends pressed on, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that they were united in their quest for answers. With each passing moment, they drew closer to the heart of the darkness that had plagued them for so long, their determination unshaken by the horrors that surrounded them. As they delved deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, they began to sense a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle change that set their nerves on edge. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and whispers filled the air, taunting them with half-remembered nightmares and forgotten truths. But still, they pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth behind the mansion's curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. With each step, they drew closer to the answers they sought, their resolve unshaken by the horrors that lurked in the shadows. And then, just when they thought they had uncovered all of the mansion's secrets, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within its bowels, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. Weeks had passed since their narrow escape from the crumbling mansion, yet the memories of that dreadful night continued to weigh heavily on Catherine, Thomas, Amelia, and William. Each day seemed to blur into the next as they struggled to come to terms with the horrors they had witnessed, haunted by the specter of the mansion and the malevolent force that dwelled within its walls. Catherine, once the fearless leader of their group, found herself plagued by doubts and uncertainties that gnawed at her resolve. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of the mansion's secrets, and the thought of returning filled her with a mixture of dread and determination. Thomas, ever the loyal companion, tried to bury his fears beneath a stoic faade, but the nightmares that plagued his sleep told a different story. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had awoken something ancient and terrible, something that should have remained undisturbed. Amelia, the scholar with a thirst for knowledge, found herself torn between her rational skepticism and an unshakable sense of curiosity. The mysteries of the mansion called to her like a siren's song, tempting her with the promise of answers that lay just beyond her grasp. And William, haunted by the guilt of his role in their ill-fated expedition, wrestled with demons of his own making. The weight of his failures hung heavy on his shoulders, a constant reminder of the price they had paid for their folly. Together, they struggled to make sense of their shared trauma, searching for solace in each other's company as they grappled with the darkness that threatened to consume them. But the scars left by their ordeal ran deep, and try as they might, they could not escape the shadows that lurked in the corners of their minds. And then, just when it seemed that they would never find peace, they received a mysterious message, a cryptic invitation to return to the mansion once more, promising answers to the questions that had plagued them for so long. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, they gathered once more at the edge of the forest, their hearts heavy with uncertainty as they prepared to confront the darkness that awaited them within the mansion's walls. For they knew that their journey was far from over, and that the true horror was yet to come. With a sense of trepidation weighing heavily upon them, Catherine, Thomas, Amelia, and William ventured once more into the depths of the ancient forest, the towering trees seeming to lean in towards them as if whispering warnings of impending danger. The path ahead was obscured by thick undergrowth and tangled vines, each step forward feeling like a descent into the unknown. As they approached the mansion, its looming silhouette cast a foreboding shadow over the landscape, its darkened windows seeming to stare out at them with malevolent intent. The air around them grew thick with tension, each breath feeling more labored than the last as they braced themselves for what lay ahead. Pushing open the heavy doors, they stepped once more into the dimly lit foyer of the mansion, the musty scent of decay assaulting their senses as they crossed the threshold. The familiar creaking of the floorboards echoed through the empty halls, a haunting reminder of the horrors they had faced on their previous visits. But this time, there was an eerie silence that hung in the air, broken only by the sound of their own footsteps as they made their way deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. The darkness seemed to press in around them, suffocating and oppressive, as if the very walls of the mansion were closing in. As they delved further into the depths of the mansion, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, unseen eyes tracking their every move from the shadows. Whispers drifted through the empty halls, chilling and incomprehensible, sending shivers down their spines. Yet despite the mounting sense of dread that threatened to overwhelm them, they pressed on, driven by a desperate need to uncover the truth behind the mansion's curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. With each step, they drew closer to the heart of the darkness that had plagued them for so long, their determination unshaken by the horrors that surrounded them. And then, just as they thought they had uncovered all of the mansion's secrets, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within its bowels, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. In the sleepy town of Oakwood Hills, nestled deep within a dense forest, there stood an imposing mansion that cast a long shadow over the land. Locals whispered tales of its dark and mysterious past, weaving stories of curses, hauntings, and unspeakable horrors that lurked within its walls. To the townsfolk, it was known simply as the Shadow Manor, a place of fear and dread that few dared to approach. But for a group of intrepid explorers, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David, the lure of the mansion's secrets proved too tantalizing to resist. Fueled by a thirst for adventure and a desire to uncover the truth, they set out one fateful evening to explore its hidden depths. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in around them, their branches twisting and tangling like gnarled fingers reaching out to ensnare unwary travelers. The air grew thick with anticipation, each step forward fraught with tension as they approached the mansion's looming silhouette. Pushing open the creaking gates, they stepped into the overgrown courtyard of the mansion, the echoes of their footsteps reverberating through the stillness of the night. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the crumbling facade of the mansion, its windows like empty eyes staring out into the darkness. With hearts pounding and adrenaline coursing through their veins, they crossed the threshold into the mansion's foyer, the air heavy with the scent of decay and neglect. Dust-covered furniture littered the grand entrance hall, their shadows dancing in the dim light cast by flickering candles. But as they ventured further into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, they soon realized that they were not alone. Whispers echoed through the empty halls, their voices carrying the weight of centuries-old secrets and untold horrors. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to watch their every move. Undeterred by the mounting sense of unease, the group pressed on, their curiosity outweighing their fear as they delved deeper into the mansion's darkened depths. Each room held its own mysteries, its own secrets waiting to be uncovered, but they pressed on with a determination born of desperation. But the mansion seemed to have a will of its own, its corridors shifting and rearranging themselves like a maze designed to confound and confuse. Doors slammed shut behind them, trapping them in endless loops of twisting hallways that seemed to lead nowhere. As they struggled to find their way out, tensions rose among the group, suspicions and paranoia threatening to tear them apart from within. Sarah, haunted by visions of shadowy figures lurking in the darkness, began to question their decision to explore the mansion, while Michael, ever the skeptic, dismissed her fears as nothing more than the product of an overactive imagination. But as the night wore on and their situation grew increasingly dire, they realized that they were not alone in the mansion. Something dark and malevolent lurked in the shadows, its presence growing stronger with each passing moment. With no way out and their sanity hanging by a thread, the group faced a choice: succumb to the darkness that threatened to consume them or confront the horrors of the mansion head-on. And as they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet, they knew that the true horror was yet to come. As the night wore on and the mansion's sinister presence seemed to close in around them, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David found themselves gripped by a sense of impending doom. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to watch their every move, while whispers echoed through the empty halls, their voices carrying the weight of centuries-old secrets and untold horrors. Despite their mounting fear, the group knew that they had no choice but to press forward. With each step, they felt the weight of the mansion's curse bearing down upon them, its malevolent energy sapping their strength and resolve. But they refused to be cowed by the darkness that threatened to consume them, their determination unshaken by the horrors that surrounded them. As they ventured deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, they encountered sights that chilled them to the bone: grotesque statues that seemed to come to life when they weren't looking, paintings that watched their every move with unblinking eyes, and secret passageways that led to unknown depths. But as terrifying as these encounters were, they paled in comparison to what awaited them in the heart of the mansion. For there, in the darkest recesses of the building, they discovered the truth behind its curse: a malevolent entity that had been bound to the mansion for centuries, its thirst for vengeance driving it to madness. With each passing moment, the entity grew stronger, its influence spreading like a plague through the halls of the mansion. Doors slammed shut behind them, trapping them in a nightmarish maze of twisting corridors and hidden chambers. Shadows seemed to reach out and grab at them, their touch icy cold and suffocating. But despite the overwhelming odds stacked against them, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David refused to give up hope. With courage and determination, they fought back against the darkness that threatened to engulf them, their bond as friends and allies giving them strength in the face of unimaginable horror. And then, just when it seemed that all hope was lost, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within the mansion's bowels, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets. As they emerged from the crumbling ruins of the mansion, their bodies bruised and their spirits shaken, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David knew that their ordeal was far from over. The darkness that had consumed the mansion still lingered in the air, its malevolent presence a constant reminder of the horrors they had faced. Despite their exhaustion, they knew they had to press on, for they carried with them the burden of knowledge of the true nature of the mansion's curse and the ancient evil that dwelled within its walls. With each step, they felt the weight of their discovery bearing down upon them, a heavy mantle of responsibility that they could not shake. As they made their way back through the forest, the world around them seemed to blur and warp, as if reality itself had been twisted by the malevolent forces they had unleashed. Shadows danced along the tree branches, their movements sinister and hypnotic, while strange whispers echoed through the underbrush, taunting them with half-remembered nightmares and forgotten truths. But still, they pressed on, driven by a sense of purpose that burned bright within their hearts. For they knew that they could not rest until they had put an end to the darkness that had plagued them for so long, until they had vanquished the ancient evil that lurked within the mansion's cursed halls. Their journey led them deep into the heart of the forest, to a place where the trees grew twisted and gnarled, their branches reaching out like grasping claws towards the sky. There, amidst the shadows and the silence, they found what they had been searching for: the source of the mansion's curse, a relic of unspeakable power that pulsed with dark energy. With trembling hands, they approached the relic, their hearts pounding in their chests as they prepared to confront the darkness that lay within. But as they reached out to touch it, a voice echoed through the darkness, cold and malevolent, sending shivers down their spines. "You have trespassed upon sacred ground," the voice intoned, its words dripping with venom. "You have awakened forces beyond your understanding, and now you must pay the price." But Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David refused to be cowed by the entity's threats. With steely determination, they confronted the darkness head-on, their spirits unbroken by the horrors they had faced. And then, with a burst of blinding light, the relic shattered into a million pieces, its dark energy dissipating into the air like smoke in the wind. The forest around them seemed to sigh in relief, the shadows receding as if driven back by an unseen force. As they stood amidst the ruins of the relic, their bodies bathed in the warm glow of the sunlight filtering through the trees, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David knew that their journey was finally at an end. The darkness that had plagued them for so long had been vanquished, and in its place stood a new dawn, a dawn of hope and renewal. And as they made their way back to Oakwood Hills, their hearts filled with a sense of peace that they had not felt in ages, they knew that they would always carry with them the memories of their harrowing journey. But they also knew that they had emerged stronger and wiser for having faced the darkness and triumphed. For in the end, it was not the shadows that defined them, but the light that shone within their hearts, guiding them through even the darkest of nights. And as long as that light burned bright, they knew that they would always be able to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together as friends and allies, united in their determination to overcome the darkness and embrace the light. As they returned to Oakwood Hills, the once somber town seemed to have awoken from its own slumber. The sun cast warm rays upon the quaint cottages, and the townsfolk greeted them with smiles and nods of recognition. However, beneath the surface, an air of tension lingered, a collective memory of the mansion's curse still fresh in everyone's minds. Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David knew that their journey had left a mark not just on themselves, but on the entire town. They could see it in the way people looked at them with a mixture of awe and trepidation, as if unsure whether to thank them for freeing them from the mansion's curse or to fear them for the powers they had wielded. But the group paid little heed to the whispers and stares that followed them as they made their way through the town. They had faced unimaginable horrors together, and their bond as friends had only grown stronger as a result. They knew that they could rely on each other, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As they settled back into their daily lives, they found themselves haunted by memories of their time in the mansion, the shadows that seemed to watch their every move, the whispers that echoed through the empty halls, and the darkness that threatened to consume them all. But they also found solace in the knowledge that they had faced their fears and emerged victorious, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. But just as they began to let their guard down and believe that their ordeal was finally behind them, a new darkness began to stir in the heart of Oakwood Hills. Strange occurrences plagued the town: mysterious disappearances, unexplained accidents, and sightings of shadowy figures lurking in the night. At first, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David dismissed these incidents as mere coincidence, remnants of the mansion's curse that would soon fade away with time. But as the days turned into weeks and the darkness continued to spread, they realized that something far more sinister was at play. Determined to uncover the truth and put an end to the darkness once and for all, the group set out to investigate the strange occurrences that had befallen their town. Armed with courage and determination, they delved deep into the heart of the mystery, uncovering clues that led them back to the mansion they had once thought they had escaped. But as they returned to the scene of their previous ordeal, they found that the mansion was not as empty as they had believed. Dark forces still lurked within its walls, ancient evils that had been awakened by their actions and now sought to reclaim what they had stolen. With the fate of Oakwood Hills hanging in the balance, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David knew that they had no choice but to confront the darkness head-on. They braved the treacherous corridors of the mansion once more, their hearts filled with determination as they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. And as they stood face to face with the darkness that had haunted them for so long, they knew that their journey was far from over. But with courage and unity on their side, they were ready to face whatever trials lay ahead, knowing that as long as they stood together, they would always triumph over the forces of darkness and emerge victorious in the end. As they ventured deeper into the mansion, the air grew thick with tension, every step forward feeling like a descent into the abyss. The once familiar corridors now seemed twisted and distorted, shifting and changing as if to confound their every move. Shadows danced along the walls, their movements erratic and unsettling, while strange whispers echoed through the empty halls, taunting them with half-remembered nightmares and forgotten truths. But despite the mounting sense of unease, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David pressed on, their determination unshaken by the horrors that surrounded them. With each passing moment, they drew closer to the heart of the darkness that had plagued their town, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that the fate of Oakwood Hills hung in the balance. As they ventured further into the mansion's depths, they encountered sights that chilled them to the bone: grotesque statues that seemed to come to life when they weren't looking, paintings that watched their every move with unblinking eyes, and secret passageways that led to unknown depths. But even as they faced these horrors head-on, they found themselves plagued by doubts and fears that threatened to tear them apart. Sarah, haunted by visions of the shadowy figures that lurked in the darkness, struggled to keep her composure, while Michael, ever the skeptic, questioned the wisdom of their mission. But in the face of adversity, the group found strength in their unity, their bond as friends and allies giving them the courage to press on. With each challenge they faced, they grew stronger and more determined, their spirits unbroken by the darkness that threatened to consume them. And then, just when it seemed that they had reached the limits of their endurance, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within the mansion's bowels, a chamber filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their power palpable in the air. With trembling hands, they began to piece together the mansion's dark history, uncovering the truth behind its curse and the malevolent force that held them captive. But as they delved deeper into the secrets of the past, they unwittingly unleashed a power beyond their control, awakening an ancient evil that had lain dormant for centuries. With a deafening roar, the mansion began to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the very fabric of reality unraveled before their eyes. In a final act of desperation, they fled for their lives, racing against time to escape the collapsing labyrinth before it consumed them all. And as they emerged into the blinding light of day, they realized with a mix of relief and horror that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the mansion's curse. But deep down, they knew that the darkness would always linger within them, a reminder of the horrors they had witnessed and the price they had paid for their folly. For in the end, the mansion was not merely a house haunted by ghosts, it was a living, breathing entity, a manifestation of mankind's darkest fears and deepest desires, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victims. And as long as curiosity and greed remained in the hearts of men, it would never truly be vanquished, forever bound to ensnare those foolish enough to seek its forbidden secrets.